April 2022. Cumberland County, Virginia. A Beagle puppy stares at the corner of his cage, unmoving. His ears hang limp, his tail doesn't wag. Around him, row after row of identical metal kennels hum with silence, not barks, not whines. Just silence. Down the hall, a man in gloves checks a clipboard. He doesn't look twice. That puppy doesn't have a name, just a code. In 76 days, if he's not chosen, he'll be sedated and dissected. Tested, for toothpaste. It's happening in America. Right now. In buildings you'll never enter. To animals you'll never meet. Until today. This is not fiction. This is not history. This is the true cost of cruelty-free being optional. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. For years, Mary Collins started each morning the same way. A cup of chamomile tea, soft jazz on the radio, and a walk through her garden in rural Charlottesville, Virginia. At 68, recently retired from nursing, she found peace in quiet things, pruning roses, feeding birds, knitting scarves for her grandchildren. Animals were always part of her rhythm. 2 cats lounged in sunlit windows. A squirrel she called George visited daily. She believed in kindness, in small good things. Once a month, she'd pick up cruelty-free soap at the co-op, never thinking much of it. It's just better, she'd say. The world, to her, felt gentle. Honest. But sometimes, the softest lives are the ones closest to a breaking point, and Mary was about to see something that would change everything she thought she knew. It started with a headline Mary almost scrolled past. 5,000 beagles rescued from testing facility in Virginia. Her thumb hovered. Something about the word rescued pulled at her. She clicked. What she saw was not what she expected. Rows of dogs in cages. Eyes wide, paws curled under frail bodies. Not strays, purebred beagles. Some were puppies. Others, older, worn. The name Envigo repeated through the article. Mary's town was just hours away. Her chest tightened. She reread the line, used in toxicity tests for pharmaceuticals and personal care products. For shampoo. For mascara. She felt something she hadn't in years, helplessness. But it didn't sit still. It rose. She closed the laptop and sat in silence, the image of those trembling dogs burned behind her eyes. What could she do? What should anyone do, once they've seen? Mary began to dig. Late nights, quiet searches, pages of reports. The more she read, the heavier it got. Photos leaked from inside, beagles with shaved backs, bleeding paws, stitched eyes. Whistleblower notes spoke of overcrowded cages, starvation, puppies dying without records. No one was stopping it. The Envigo facility had operated for years. Inspected. Warned. Fined. But the dogs were still there, until now. She called a local rescue listed in the article. Voicemail. She emailed. No response. Days passed. It felt like trying to hold water in her hands. She wasn't a lawyer. Not an activist. Just someone who couldn't look away. But the more she looked, the darker it became. And beneath it all was one question that kept returning, quiet and sharp: how many more places are still open? The email finally came, subject line: foster homes needed urgently. The rescue group had been overwhelmed, sorting through thousands of applications, and Mary's quiet persistence had stood out. They were placing former Envigo dogs into homes across the state. We have one for you, the message said. 6 years old. Female. Recently spayed. Never touched grass. Mary stared at the screen, hands trembling. Her heart raced. She didn't know how to train a traumatized dog. She didn't even own a leash. But something inside her steadied. She printed the form, signed her name, and cleared the guest room. That night, she stood at the edge of her yard, imagining the moment tiny paws would step onto real earth for the first time. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, it didn't feel impossible. The Beagle arrived wrapped in a towel, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Her name was Lucy. Her ribs showed through thin fur, her eyes rimmed in red from years of exposure. She wouldn't walk, just froze, belly flat to the ground. Mary sat beside her for hours, whispering nothing, just breathing. On the third night, Lucy began vomiting, violently, repeatedly. Mary panicked. The emergency vet asked questions she couldn't answer. Was she tested on? What chemicals? What dosage? There were no records. Just scars. They administered fluids, guessed at antacids. It was a gamble, on a system that had never protected this dog. Mary sat in the waiting room, gripping Lucy's collar like a lifeline. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The vet reappeared, face unreadable. They wouldn't know for another 12 hours if she'd make it through the night. Mary didn't sleep. She lay curled on the living room rug beside Lucy's blanket, listening for breath. The house was silent but for the faint ticking of the clock and Lucy's shallow inhales. Every hour, Mary checked her gums, refilled the water bowl, placed a trembling hand on her side. No change. Just stillness. She thought of the thousands of dogs like her, nameless, unseen, left to endure and disappear. Her mind circled dark places. What if she was too late? What if love wasn't enough to undo what had been done? Outside, the wind shifted. A branch tapped the window, and Lucy stirred, just barely. A twitch. A sigh. Then stillness again. Mary didn't move. She waited. Morning was still hours away. Lucy lived. Slowly, day by day, she began to trust. Her steps were timid, her tail a quiet flick instead of a wag, but she followed Mary now, from room to room, from fear towards safety. Mary stopped buying from brands she once trusted. She started writing letters, sharing Lucy's story, donating when she could. She knew it wouldn't fix everything. But it meant something. In a world where animals suffer behind closed doors, choosing to care is not small. It's a rebellion. A reminder that cruelty thrives in silence, and silence is a choice. Lucy still flinches at sudden sounds. Some wounds stay. But when she curls beside Mary at night, breathing deep and warm, it feels like the world might be changing, quietly, one story at a time. Mary never imagined how one small dog could change everything. Lucy, who once trembled in fear, now runs in the backyard, tail held high. Each step a small victory. Each day, a new lesson in what it means to truly care. But the truth is, Lucy's story is just one of thousands. And that's why your voice matters. Because what we choose to stand for, what we choose to see, makes all the difference. We can't change everything, but together, we can change something. So, thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please like, share, and leave a comment below. What's your story? What change can you make? Don't forget to subscribe, because these stories are far from over.